Day 6, the start of the next chapter. Began simple enough. Woke up in the village, decided to look around, double check one last chest to see if there was any loot worth taking, and, well, there was only really bread to take. But, looking around a little more, I noticed a hill with a waterfall coming down from it, and after a bit of thinking, I decided, you know what? I'm gonna climb that hill. I'm gonna go look around, get the lay of the land, see what there is to see around here. I wasn't expecting much, but when I got up there, it was actually a really nice view of a swamp and a beach not too far away. So, I decided to make my way down the hill, cut through the swamp, and then head over to the beach so I could see if it had an ocean next to it. Which, at first, I couldn't tell for sure, but it turned out it most definitely had an ocean right there next to it, and much to my delight, it was stocked full of kelp. And if you guys have seen any of the content on my channel, you know I like farming kelp. It is satisfying to break the stalks of kelp down in the ocean, even more satisfying to collect all that kelp. And I gotta say, I enjoyed picking this stuff up. It was fun. It was a delight to listen to all those little pops of all that kelp just going right into the inventory. See what I mean? It is a very satisfying sound, picking up a lot of items at once, and kelp just makes that really easy. Paddling over towards the shore, I looked around briefly, and I saw a mountain with cliffs that looked like they might have some riches to find. So I headed over, started climbing my way up, hoping that this mountain would have more than just copper to collect. Copper and coal. Figured I was okay for coal. I'd probably come back for the coal there later if I needed it. But making my way up to the top, I did indeed find some iron stuck in the cliffs, and did my best to gather up all of it so that I would have enough iron to make some more tools. Possibly make some armor down the road. That was my intention, at least. And even up at the peak, there was still a little bit of iron. To make it so that the journey was worth it. Didn't feel like dropping down, definitely couldn't jump, and I wasn't confident I could do a water bucket clutch, so I placed my boat, hopped in, and rode my way down the waterfall. Or, not waterfall, cliff. Why did I think cliff? Why did I think waterfall? Anyway, I rode my way from there over to the shore across the sea. Figured I'd make my way home the long way. I was gonna start gathering some meat and other resources, like leather. Realized my inventory was way too full. So, I did some assessing, realized I didn't need the wool. After that, ended up also realizing I didn't need two stacks worth of sweet berries. One stack was gonna be more than enough. So, grabbed the meat and leather the cow dropped and headed on. Making sure to pick up anything I could, like sugarcane, that might be useful on my way back. My hope was to get back to my cave before nightfall, but as you will see, making my way along this river, trying to find my way home, the sun was already getting ready to set. It was already getting ready to set, and there was no chance that I was going to make it home before night officially kicked in. And one thing is most definitely certain in hardcore. You do not want to tango with the troubles of mobs at night without armor. And unless you got diamond armor, you're in big trouble. So, I dug myself a little hidey hole, a little cave, and figured I'd wait out the night in there. Which, by wait out the night, I of course mean that I ended up placing a bed inside the cave for me to sleep. I made sure there was enough room that I could actually place the bed down, of course. For some reason, you can't just place it down in a 1x2 tunnel, but once the bed was down, it was time for a nap. So I placed it down, and took a little snooze. And in the morning, on day 7, it was time to start making my way home again. I wasn't entirely sure where I was going, but I had some familiarity with the area. And it wasn't long before I found my way back to my cave, entered through the river mouth, and started putting away all the goodies I'd found. And as you can see, it was a lot of things. But that comes with its own problems. The problem being that I was going to need more storage. So I placed down a couple of chests and got thinking, what's the next thing I need to do? So I'll send up some iron to cook, crafting a couple more torches. I decided it was time to dive into an important project. Making an access way up to the surface. Yes, I could go in and out of the cave through the cave mouth on the river, but I would need somewhere on the surface where I could do something very, very vitally important. Ensure a food supply. So, I started expanding the little alcove and building a stairway, well, digging a stairway, actually, up to the surface above the cave. Because, like I said, I knew I was going to need to set up a food supply, and the best place to do that was going to be up on the surface. Fish was not going to cut it forever. And it's such a pain to get a whole bunch of fish, you know? So, my intention was to go up to the surface, clear some space, and get things set up to be able to do some farming. But of course, there were a lot of trees on the surface that I would need to clear away first. So, I got busy. Between knocking down trees to get wood and clear them out of the way, and clearing up some terraforming, I was burning through some of my durability on my tools pretty quick. But it was all going to be worth it when I could flatten out the area, make it nice and open and clear, and be able to build a structure to shelter the entrance to the cave from the surface. There was a hill nearby that I had some interest in as well, but I had a few plans for it, and in order to be able to get them going, I knew I needed to light the place up, so I took care of that. Started planting some torches all around. Figured light it up, and then get busy with the actual building. But night was coming on fast, so I ended up sleeping through the night before I could get anything really big going. But that led into day 8, where I immediately improved the stairway, and then got busy with my plans. Making sure I had plenty of wood, I looked at the space around me, and decided the time had come. After making sure I had all the items I needed, that is. But ultimately, with tools in hand, spruce, birch, and oak ready to be put to use, I was ready to get started on building a little shack. A little hut. Not anything super fancy. Something simple. Simple, straightforward in design, and easy to build. so that I'd have something to keep the entrance to the cave safe from anything that might spawn in the night and try to give me grief. Because if there was one thing I was not looking to have happen, it was having mobs sneak up behind me and give me trouble. One with a very simple and familiar palette with this build, too. Using a mix of birch planks, oak planks, and spruce logs, I was basically going for like a miniature cabin in order. Like I said earlier, shack. Made sure that it had space for some kind of windows. Wasn't sure what I was going to do for that. Originally, I was planning to use glass to do that. But the more I worked, the more I did some thinking on it. But as I was building the shack, I also started clearing out more room around the shack. Both to make so that it was less likely that mobs would be able to sneak up on me from areas I couldn't see, like up the hill. And to provide room for gardening that I knew I was going to need to do. Like I said, I wanted to start setting up a food source. I needed to set up a food supply. And the easiest way to do that is animals. But if you don't have any animals, you're going to have to go and find them. And even if you find them, you're going to need something to make it so that you can get a whole bunch of them. You're going to need the stuff that it takes to breed them. So I knew that once the shack was built, I was going to need to set up a crop farm. A little bit tedious, but if I was going to survive in this hardcore world, it was going to be essential. As was putting a roof on the shack. Figured, if I'm going to live here, and if I'm going to have this building up on the surface, it's got to be complete as soon as possible. So I worked into the night of day 8 trying to put a roof on the shack and make sure that it was properly constructed and fully fleshed out as much as possible before anything could spawn and give me trouble. Of course, I wasn't entirely successful in getting it done before anything showed up that could give me trouble, but by the time anything like that showed up, I was ready for it. Mainly because I was up in the air where it couldn't get to me. As you will see shortly. I forgot that it fell down there. That I actually forgot about that. See, this series is still ongoing even as I'm doing this recording. So, there's still a lot that lies ahead. I don't know what's going to happen. But I'm looking forward to continuing this world. And I hope you guys enjoy it as I play. And if you do, hey, please let me know. Please let me know what you're enjoying about it. Alright? Thank you. With that little side note taken care of, to add to the build, I decided to do a spruce wolf with... not wolf. Roof. A spruce roof with a cobblestone trim. Not something I haven't done before. It's something that I have done many, many times, but it's comfortable to do, it's simple, and it looks pretty nice. But once I placed down the door of the shack, it was time to go to bed. So I slept through the night of day 8 from there, woke up on day 9, and after making sure I had what I was going to need for what I had planned, namely a hoe for the crop farm, it was time to dump a few things into my storage chests, grab out the seeds for the crops that I was going to be planting, and then go get busy making sure that I had the perfect spot to make my farm. And I knew exactly how I was going to do it. Which is part of why I had to slow down so I could actually make sure I did have all the seeds and stuff that I was going to need. Figured I didn't want to have to come back down to get those things later. But that also gave me a moment of pause for thought. I was going to need something to finish the roof, too. So I headed down to the mine, figured I could crack out 2 birds with 1 stone by going down to the iron level and digging up a initial tunnel for mining for iron. It would get me cobblestone to be able to finish up the shack, and it would set the foundation for future iron mining efforts. And it didn't take long before I had a very simple tunnel on either side of the stairway, and was satisfied enough to head back up to the surface. Once up there, I immediately put the cobblestone to use, putting these cobblestone slabs on the roof of the shack to finish it up. And from there, I put in some oak trap doors as windows. Figured I'd replace them with glass later if I wanted to. And then made sure I had a couple of things, dropped a few things off in storage in the cave, and came back up to the top, up to the surface, so I could get busy building up my crop farm. And I decided to start with the roof. I went for something very simple here, but I knew I needed a roof because I wanted to make sure that no mobs coming down the hill could land on the crops and break them. That is the absolute biggest peeve that I have when it comes to Minecraft farms, is that the cropland can be broken like that. Is it realistic? Yes. Does it make sense? Yes, but it's still irritating. And I even took the extra precaution of fencing in the area where I was going to do this crop farm to make sure that nothing could get in to mess it up. Use a very simple trick to set up water for the crop farm so that I knew it would have enough. Put water behind it, in the wall, or in a block under the wall. And once I had that set up, I made sure that it was hidden away, that water, before tilling the soil. My focus here was just to get the farm established, so a 4x8 crop plot was more than enough to meet the needs that I felt I had at the time. But night was settling in once again, and I ended up having to go to bed and slept. But the morning of day 10, I immediately got busy on the next phase of getting my food supply set up. And that was putting in fences to enclose the animals that I was going to go and get. Yeah, my next big thing to do was to go out and get animals. Like I said before, I needed a food supply. Crops were going to be good to keep that food supply alive by being able to breed the animals, but I didn't have any animals to breed yet. And I knew I was going to need plenty of room for them to be able to grow and multiply in. So I set up these fences specifically for that purpose. Wasn't exactly anything complex. But once I had the fences set up, it was time to go and get the animals. And right away I found some chickens up the hill from the shack. Started tempting them around with some pumpkin seeds. And then led them back down the hill to my little shack fences, where I was going to keep them tucked away. Once I got them in place, it was time to go find the other animals that I was going to need, which were, all of them. I still needed cows, sheep, and pigs, but it wasn't long before I found some cows and a single sheep. Just one, at first. Just one. I was really hoping I could find more, but instead of finding another sheep, oddly enough, I ended up finding a pig. So, I figured, you know what? Let's go ahead and bring all these guys back with us in one go. Let's see if we can bring them all back with us in one go. It was not easy. I can tell you right now. I can tell you that plain and clear. It was not easy to get them all back in one shot. They kept losing interest, but I eventually did it. Of course, getting them into the pen when they were all trying to follow me wasn't exactly easy. I ended up having to open up the fence specifically so that they could all get through the gap pretty easily. Not something I like doing because of that. If you're not careful, they can try to run away, they can try to escape, and then what do you do? It ends up becoming a big, complicated, chaotic mess. But before long, I had them all contained. But problem was, I had them contained, but how was I going to separate them? Turned out to be a pretty simple process to get them separated. Just use the fences. And of course, one cow decided he wanted to try to make a run for it. He wanted to try and escape. So I made sure that was difficult, and it still ended up happening. The darn cow did not want to stay, so I figured one less cow, not such a big deal. As long as I had 2 to get the farming going, I would be okay. But that left me with another problem. How do I separate the cows and our sheep? Well, I ended up just pushing the sheep into a corner and fencing them in, as you can see. Not exactly an elegant solution, but it was simple, and, as it turned out, quite effective. With the sheep penned in his pen, wow, what articulation of words. It was easy to lead the cows over to a section specifically for them among the fences. And then I just let him out to roam around in his own proper. But from there, I needed to find more sheep. And it wasn't long before I did, but it took me a few minutes. But once I found them, I had another problem. It was getting dark, and there was no telling where the mobs were going to start coming from. So I have to admit, I was getting a little nervous at this point. I started getting a bit nervous at this point. But I stuck to it. I kept leading them along, even when third-person mode, to help make it so I could monitor if they were all following me, and to watch for monsters, which a skeleton did end up spawning in, tried to give me some grief. I, in turn, eliminated him. But he managed to land a few blows, which further intensified my nerves. To be quite honest with you, I started getting a little concerned that I might not survive if I wasn't extremely careful, which that was going to be hard. It was going to be hard to be that careful. But I figured I'd be able to deal with it. Once I had the sheep properly penned in and all the animals were given a quick check over, and I even fed the cows again through the window of the shack, which, hey, that gave me an easy, safe way to feed them, at least, from within the shack where I wouldn't be attacked. Which, it actually looks like I didn't actually get to feed them. But, with all that taken care of, I made my way downstairs, and took to the bed for the end of day 10. And that, as they say, is that. Thank you everybody so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to leave likes, comment, subscribe, and share.